Hey, you guys, this is Jim Landers welcoming you to another episode of the Portrait Profit Show. Thank you guys so much for being here this evening, this Monday evening. It's beautiful here in San Antonio. It rained a little bit earlier, so we're happy for that. But I am so glad that you guys are here with us this evening. We have a different. We're doing today's episode slightly different than we have before. And so we're kind of excited about how we're going to be doing this. And we absolutely are encouraging you guys to participate. We want your questions. We want you to banter with us. And I say us because Amanda is here with me. And she and I are going to be going back and forth on this subject. And that doesn't mean back and forth as in we have a difference of opinion. We actually share the opinion. But we've got different thoughts and ideas and things that we're going to share. And so, Amanda, I want to give you the floor just a little bit to share about you and the Digital Pro Lab.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. Thanks again for joining us. Amanda here with Digital Pro Lab. If you're not familiar with our company, we are the largest professional full-service photo lab here in San Antonio. We're located at 10103 San Pedro, and our website's digitalprolab.com. I'm hoping that this isn't your first introduction to us, as we do quite a bit in our community, that photographer community here in San Antonio. One, to let you know that we are here in San Antonio to help you every step of the way as photographers, as well as, sorry, I've got a brand new puppy and we're trying to kennel train her and she may be barking a little bit. So if I have to step outside, I will. Jim will let me know. She should settle down in a second. But she's also our puppy that we're going to have at Digital Pro Lab. So you'll see her there too. Anyways, so Digital Pro Lab definitely is here to help you every step of the way. Portrait Profits is just one of the ways that we try and give back to our photographer community to help uplift everybody, to give you resources, open forum discussions, bring speakers so that they can share with you some things that you might have questions about. Today in particular, I know Jim and I are going to be talking about when it's time to make the switch from digital to offering prints to your clients. So I think it's going to be a great discussion, and I hope that you use the comment section today to ask those questions ahead of time. And Jim and I will hopefully do a good job of trying to inform the conversation. And like you said, just kind of go back and forth a little bit about our ideas on why a lot of photographers that we both work with, one on the printing side as well as Jim on the educational side, how we help photographers make that decision on whether or not they're ready to make the switch, or even do something maybe like a hybrid where they're offering digital and starting to baby step into offering prints, and how some of our photographers that we work with do that. So that's a little bit about Digital Pro Lab and then what we're going to be discussing today.
You do so well with that, Amanda.
Thank you.
And we love hearing your puppy, even though he's probably not real happy right now, being kennel trained, but it's for his own good, right?
Yes.
Good. We have several people that are commenting. Hello, Amanda and Jim. That's from Andrew Offinger. I'm glad you're here, Andrew. And Charlie Ray, that's Chuck, is saying hi, guys. And Lydia, how you doing, Lydia? So glad that you're here. So real quick, just a word about who I am and what I'm doing. My name is Jim Landers, and I am the owner of Landers Photography School. We have over 100 classes that we teach, 100 different titles that we teach. And they range from the basics, the beginning, all the way to running a business. In fact, I can, in as few as 8 weeks, I can show you how to bring in 10,000 easy a month, every single month. And so that's just one of the things that I do and love doing. But when we're here for the Portrait Profit Show, Amanda and I are here because we want to uplift photographers. We don't charge a dime. You guys know this. You're here. You haven't paid anything. You know we're not charging anything for it. This is because we believe in you and we want to uplift you. And we've been right where you're at before and are still in some ways there. We keep growing. And so real quick, a little bit about me. about this related to the show. My name is Jim Landers, and my mission is simple. I help portrait photographers just like you make a great income doing what they love. Each week, you get tips and systems on the business side of photography designed to gain a mastery over both marketing and sales. That way, you reduce the struggles that most photographers face so that you can finally get what you deserve. You're in the right place. Welcome to the Portrait Profits Show. Today, we're going to be talking about, in fact, I'll just show you what we're going to be talking about. Move myself. Can you hear me when I had that up? Were you able to hear me when I had that logo up? I wondered if it took the audio away when I did that.
It did.
Well, of course it did. So we're talking about when is it time to make the switch, the big switch. And what does that really mean? It's there's a lot of photographers that have what they do. It's not appropriate is digital files. And so we're not saying, neither one of us are going to say that you're bad if you don't do digital, if you only do digital files. We're going to give you another perspective, another way of looking at that. And so I'm looking at some more of these comments in here. I better put them up before. Hey, Eugene.
I know. We miss Eugene. Hi, Eugene.
Eugene is on, Robin. Robin's waving with both hands at you, Eugene. Do you have the kids there with you? David, Simone, hi to you both. Oh, so glad you guys are saying stuff to us here in the chat. It's coming up on our screen. So, Steve, glad you're here. I hope you had a good time in Santa Fe. He just spent the weekend climbing all the Pueblo dwellings around Santa Fe. Doesn't that sound like fun? Let's see. I don't know who that is, but I'm saying hello back to you. Thank you for saying hello. There's a bunch in here. I want to make sure I put them all up before we go too far. Good. Yeah, I can afford that too. Yep. Hey, Todd, how's it going? You might know Todd, Amanda. I'm not sure. Todd is in Austin. He used to live here in San Antonio, but he is the Lumix ambassador.
Oh, I don't know Todd. I'll have to
meet him. Lumix. So he's very active. Let's see. Lydia and Rick. What question did I ask that caused all the no's? I have forgotten. Oh, they couldn't hear me.
Yeah, I know. We're always trying new stuff, guys. So
thanks, guys, for letting me know. I killed the audio. So I guess I'm a little bit behind. Thanks, Todd. I appreciate that. And Jero, every week I have lunch with Landers. Jero is going with me tomorrow, and he sent me a message earlier today asking a question, and I haven't responded yet. And so, Jero, as soon as I'm done with this show, I'll respond to you. I'm looking forward to having lunch with you tomorrow. By the way, you guys that don't know, once a week I take a photographer to lunch. It's on Tuesday, every single Tuesday for lunch. I take one photographer to lunch with me. By the way, if you guys want a day other than Tuesday, I'm open to allowing you to buy. But I'll be happy to go with you. It's just I'm doing Tuesdays. That's the one I chose. Good. I want to have lunch with you too. So you know what? These might keep on coming, so I think I probably should get started. I'm thrilled that you guys are doing that. I'm really happy to see that. So Amanda, someone may think that you're a little bit biased because you've got a lab. And of course you think that prints are the right thing to do. But I don't have a lab. And I absolutely think that prints are the right thing to do. And so hearing these two different perspectives, someone who's teaching photographers, someone who is supporting photographers by helping them create beautiful images and as an end result, I think the two of us together can really cover this really well. And for those of you who want to comment and ask your questions, feel free. Anything that we say that causes you to say, or really ask. We want to address it. It doesn't matter how hard it is. If you think it's tough and man, maybe I should ask this at a different time, we can handle it, guys. We've been doing this for a long time. We can handle it. There's times when printing is appropriate and there's times when it just simply isn't.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about those things. So which one should we go first? Should we talk about when it's not appropriate? When is it okay not to print?
You want to tackle that one first and I'll
Sure.
jump in? Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So the question really should be, what's the end result? Not your end result necessarily. What's the end result for the photograph? So, and this is my opinion. You can have a difference of opinion. I encourage differences of opinion. That's what makes everything exciting, is differences of opinion. So in my opinion, the end result should tell you what you're supposed to do. Anytime you have something that it's on your plate, something that you're responsible for, define what the end result is, and defining the end result will tell you a ton of stuff that you're supposed to do. For instance, if you want to hang out on the river walk downtown, you've just defined the end result. Therefore, you have the ability to plan how to get there. You can put it on GPS and play. So you've got this destination. You can plan the path to get there. Too many of us photographers don't plan the path. We just get excited and go. And that's great, except it causes us some problems. So if the end result is supposed to be a digital file, let's say you have a client who wants to do a headshot for their LinkedIn profile. If that's the only purpose that they have, then the digital file is the appropriate tool. We just choose the tool that's the appropriate tool for the job. Do you agree with that, Amanda?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, we work with several different types of photographers, and we found that depending on the type of photography that you do and the type of client that you cater to, and obviously for many photographers, you have a wide type of clientele that you cater to. So you may offer different types of products, and a product can be a digital file, to a certain sect of your clientele versus another sect of your clientele. And the first question you need to ask yourself is, what does my client expect from my type of photography? And depending on what the answer to that is, you may need to evaluate whether or not digital photography or digital output, like a digital file to disk or to email or something like that, that digital delivery is something that you want to or need to provide to your client.
Yeah. Totally agree with that.
Yeah. I know, like for us, we generally will find that some of our commercial photographers, those that are AP photographers, so your Associated Press photographers, they're selling to publications, and their end result is print. It's just that the photographer is not the means by which to print. Obviously their client is the one that's going to be taking care of that publication. So all they need to do is deliver that digital file so that it can then be transferred to, the publication or to designers and things like that to be able to be output. So if you're catering to that market, it's very common to see typically digital output versus print from the photographer in that particular scenario.
Disc? What's a disc?
I
know. Somebody's funny. I like it when you guys poke fun at us. So
disc, USB, digital delivery, whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, we've been doing this a while. We see lots of iterations of delivery. I remember floppy disk and just all that good stuff. It changes.
Yeah. And that's a good reason to print right there, because it does.
Yeah. Printing, it evolves and it changes, but the general physical piece in and of itself doesn't change. Something that goes on a wall, or something that goes on a mantle or it goes in an office, that end result is relatively similar.
Yeah, that's right. So there's lots of different end results. So we just need to find out what is it that we're working towards, and help our client get that. And that's what Todd White is saying here. It's our job to educate the clients. It's our job to find out first what it is that they think that they want. But we are the experts. We do this day in, day out. We actually should know all this. Some of us think, well, you just do what the client says. The client's not the expert. You absolutely listen to what the client says, but then you give them what is actually best, whether they know that's the best or not. They have a limited knowledge. You're not relying on them as the one with the most knowledge. You're relying on you as the one with the most knowledge. At least you should be. And so you are finding out what it is they want, and then you're educating your client on what works best for them.
Yeah, what they need. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Todd.
No, yeah, perfect. And it really can be specific to your market on what you need to be providing your clients. But really, at the end of the day, it's your business. And for us, when we're working with our clients, their biggest concern is, how can I be successful financially, having, a full-time photography business. And most of the clients that we're working with don't start with a full-time photography business. They're part-time. It's something that they do to supplement their income. And a lot of them start offering digital only because there's apart from the equipment cost and maybe a little bit of the education or software cost, there's no upfront product cost that you're having to incur to be able to provide your clients, physical prints. But it's definitely the way that we've found that photographers are able to make the jump from part-time photographer to full-time photographer by expanding what they offer, and those products offering your business something that offers margin, which is where you're actually there making that profit margin, right? So you have more that you're able to make so that you can really, really hone in on what those goals are initially and say, okay, well, if I need to make, you just throw a number out there, if I want to make $50,000 a year, how do I do that? And Jim is absolutely somebody that we recommend highly to help photographers work back into that goal, because you and I both know, Jim, that, running businesses does not really mean you have like 2 or 3 items that you have to pay for to run your business. There are always lots of hidden costs that add up that we really need to identify, and making sure that you're offering products, services that actually have a good profit margin is something that's actually going to enable you to be able to make the money, sustainable money, to support your family. And that's really, for running a photography business, what you need to be considering, when you really are analyzing whether or not your business is going to be successful.
Yeah, that's definitely the truth. And it's something that a photographer needs to start off with. I consider photographers to be amazing, fantastic people, and so does Amanda. But I also think that we are the inflatable flailing tube people, because we get so excited about something and we move towards it with our passion and dedication and energy. And when things don't work out, we're thinking, well, the problem must be that. It must be the client can't afford it. It must be that the client is this, or that my area can't afford that, or my area is different than your area. Guys, you're wrong if you believe that. You have to define your destination if you plan on having any amount of success. You've got to define the end result, and you start that off with yourself. What do I want for me? Well, who do I want to be? What things do I want in my life? A house, vacations, a vacation home, whatever it is that you want. If you want a yacht in the Caribbean, then you've got to define what it is that you want so you can plan a path to get there. Just like the example I gave earlier, if you want to go to downtown San Antonio to go to the Riverwalk, you've defined a destination. Defining a destination gives you the potential to reach success. if you don't define your destination, you haven't even given yourself potential to reach success. That's why I consider most photographers to be inflatable, flailing tube people, because we are giving it all we've got. We are working hard, but we don't have any direction. Our motion, our energy, we're going everywhere. It's not a matter of us not having the power, the energy, the dedication, the passion. It's not about that. It's that our energy isn't focused towards a destination. So every single thing you do, go into it with a win-win. You get to win, and whoever you're working with gets to win. And there's probably going to be a win-win-win involved also. But let's just focus on two things at a time. So you get a win, whoever you're working with gets a win. If either one of you is losing, find a way to make it a win. Enter everything with a win-win, but have a destination in mind in life, in business, and with each and every individual job you do. Define the destination. Find out what that destination is supposed to be. By the way, someone may tell you, let's say it's a family portrait. They may say, you know what, all I want is digital files. Why would they ask for such a thing? Well, because they know how to use digital files. They know exactly how to use digital files. They can put them on their Instagram account. They can send it to Walgreens. I mean, who would do something like that? Would anybody ever do that? I don't. Some people do, but they know what to do with these digital files. So therefore, you may think, well, since they know what to do with them, and that's what they're asking for, the customer is always right. So give them what they asked for, guys. If that's what you do, and that's the reason why you do it, how is this any better than what the neighbor could have done? Because couldn't they have called their next door neighbor and said, hey, we're going to be dressed up tomorrow morning. Can you come over and do a quick few photographs of us and then send us over the digital files afterwards? Yeah, they can do that. Guys, if you're not doing more than what the neighbor could have done, seriously reconsider increasing what it is that you do. You've got to do more than what the neighbor does. Define what the end result is, and then find a way, a path to get to it. Maybe I could put up a couple of these comments here. Rick is saying, I'm pretty new at this, but I want to see my finished print. I want to make sure my client avoids CVS. Yes, we definitely want that. We lose control when we give someone else digital files. And if you're an artist, a true artist, you want control over your art. I mean, imagine if you were a painter on canvas. You painted, I don't know, landscape scenes. Well, other people know how to paint too. So maybe you buy the canvas and maybe you draw on it with pencil and you put a little number 1 for green and number 2 for gold and number 5 for brown. And you get them all the paints and you put it all in a package and you send it with the right brushes and you give them a 1, 2, 3 on how to do it and you mail that to them. What artist would do that? Guys, artists don't do that, but some photographers do. It's because they haven't thought it through. At least I think so. Just because someone asked for it does not mean it's appropriate. I'll give you another example. When's the last time you went to a restaurant and they said, here's the whole head of lettuce. You know how to shred it to make your salad. No restaurant would do that. What about a roofer? The roofer comes to work on your home and they're excited and they drive up in their truck. They put the ladder up against your house. They'd spend all day taking that roof off. They bring the shingles up to the house and they put their ladder back on the truck and go inside the cab of the truck and pick up this bag of nails with a bow around it. And they walk up to your front door and they're happy. They ring that doorbell and you come to the door and you say, all right, I'm done. You know how to use a hammer and nails. Here's a free bag of nails. Tell your friends about me. Guys, that's what you're doing when you are not completing the job. Somehow us photographers have gotten away with it, but only in the last 20 years, because it didn't happen before that. Photographers never did that. They always completed the job. But in the last 20 years, somehow we've gotten, I don't know, is it lazy? Maybe it's just lack of information. Maybe we're not seeking information like we used to. I don't know. But I feel like we're not thinking it through. What do you think, Amanda?
I definitely think it's lack of information, but it's also the opposite of that. I think there's too much information, and a lot of people don't know where to start. They don't, there's what do I need to know about the equipment and the lighting and, the softwares? Do I need to be on Photoshop? Do I need to be in Lightroom? Where do I find that education? Where do I find a group of people that will teach me? Or mentors, et cetera. And then you start to get into the products, oh my God, there's so many things to learn about what types of products I want to offer. And then you get into the parts where, okay, I've edited my photo, I'm sending it to a lab, and oh crap, my photo didn't come out anything like I expected it to. It's too low resolution because maybe you saw on YouTube or something that you needed to pre-crop your image a certain way with certain dimensions or 72 DPI, which I see a lot of, which is incorrect. But out of context, all of that information is flooding photographers, and new photographers or relatively new photographers don't really know where to start. And then there's a lot of frustration. And what we see is that frustration is a barrier to a lot of photographers actually making that switch from being a full digital only photographer to a photographer that is going to get to the point where they can offer high-end photographs, high-end wall portraits that are of a quality to be printed. And that's what we see. Do you see that too, Jim?
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. And I like how you said that, because I like seeing it here in a different way. One of the questions I get is, well, okay, I get it. And I like prints too, but how do you find clients that want them? Well, first you have to tell them that that's what you do. Yeah, I mean, let's say when you go into Home Depot or Lowe's, when you go in there with a very specific idea in mind. Most of us don't go in there just to wander around. And maybe you have, but most of the time when I go to a store like that, it's because I need a tool or a combination of tools. And so I go in there, I get what I need, and I leave. And so if I go looking for a hammer, I don't find myself at the ceiling fans and walk home with one of those and forget about the hammer. No, I go to where the hammers are. I look at the choices of hammers. I choose the one that's the right one for me, and I leave because that's what I needed. Guys, if you tell people that you print, then those who want digital files don't call you. Those who want prints call you. I didn't realize that at first. Now, at first, the first 10, so I started in full-time in 1991, part-time in 1983. But I've been a full-time portrait and event photographer since 1991. And at first it was all film, of course. And so printing was just part of the deal. And it's kind of interesting how now we have maybe three different options. You've got the shoot and burners, those photographers who are shooting burners. You've got the photographers who are post and prayers, meaning they post their images and they pray that someone will buy something. And then you have the in-person sales. And in-person sales is the oldest way. I know a lot of people think that's the newest, but no, that's the oldest. It's the way it's always been done up until about 20 years ago when different things started. And I was part of that bandwagon when we started being able to do post and pray. I did put my images online, and I hoped that people would buy. And people did, but I didn't realize it was a decline because my business increased. The number of people I worked with increased. And so my prints, the amount of prints income that I made was about the same. It really didn't change. But about 8 years later, started looking a little bit more seriously. And about, let's see, it was January of 2000 when I started doing post and pray. And I hadn't even switched to digital yet. And then it was about 2010 when I stopped doing post and pray. I just don't offer it anymore. And the reason is because when I started analyzing the difference, my sales were huge amount of difference when it comes to percentage. When I stopped doing post and pray, my income increased by 50% overnight. I'm not exaggerating, you guys. It just automatically, boom, changed. Post and pray is not bad. It's convenient. And there's times when it's totally appropriate. If you're a wedding photographer, How else are you going to show all the guests those images? So wedding photography, post and pray is the right thing to do. When it comes to portrait photography, high school seniors, maternity, newborn, families, etc., in-person sales is the way to go with that. It tells your clients that you really care. I'm not saying that you don't care if you don't do it that way. That's not at all what I'm saying. Don't misinterpret. But holding the hand of your client throughout the entire process is the ultimate way of showing that you care. If you stop before the process is over, you cared up until that point, and I guess you don't care anymore. I don't know. I don't really put it in the don't care category because I think that you do care. I think photographers are some of the most caring people, period. We do care about our clients. We care about how they feel. We care about them enjoying the work that we produce for them. Do you agree with that, Amanda? I realize I'm talking too much.
No, you're fine. No, photographers are extremely caring people. I mean, you would have to be able to photograph people. If we're talking about portrait photographers, obviously you need to be deeply in tune with people to be able to get the best out of them, those great expressions, and create things for them that are going to commemorate that part of their life at that moment, whether it's their family at that stage, at a certain stage of their life. It's very important for us to consider the importance of what we're doing as photographers and what we're giving them in the long term. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but I was thinking about it today before today's portrait conference. Kind of some of the things that I wanted to say, but we've done a lot of thinking because we have to convince people, just like a lot of our photographers do, on the importance of printing. And we know how important our health is. Tell somebody to exercise, and some of us are like, yeah, we're going to go out there and exercise, but really it isn't until we get of a certain age that we really see how important it is. Life insurance, until you get to a certain point in your life, you start to see things, that life insurance is a little bit more important. Sorry, guys. Ray, do you mind? No, I don't mind. Thank you. And, health insurance, those sorts of things. And unfortunately, sorry, guys. Unfortunately, photography has become one of those things that people don't realize the importance of that investment until it's too late. And the importance of having a printed photo until, you get to a certain point of your life or until it's too late, right? So it's very, very important for you as photographers to really understand that you want to encourage people because of that importance. And we don't want it to sound like it's this imminent thing. I mean, that's why I'm thinking about, health insurance, life insurance, that sort of stuff, because unfortunately that's kind of what we've seen, that those industries kind of parallel our industry a little bit. But it's our job to convince people that the investment is the right investment to make now, and it's also because it's very important for the businesses that you want to create. You want to create things for people, and you want to be in the business of creation and creating things that are going to last. And prints are the things that are going to last because people find more value in physical things than they do in digital things, because digital things now are so prolific. They're everywhere, right? It's easy to take a picture with your phone. So easy. Everybody has a camera now. Everybody can take a decent photo now, but not everybody takes the time to print, which is why there is more value now in that. And it's something to really consider.
Yeah, that's a good point. That reminds me of a story that someone told me a few years ago. It was a dad who did like most dads do. They go along with the family portrait, but it really is not their idea. They put up with it, but they've got other things they'd rather do, and they have other things they'd rather spend money on. So But this particular dad got that diagnosis that that you hear about, but don't think will happen to you. He found out that he didn't have much time to live. I think it was 2 weeks, and this was the wife telling the story. This wasn't him telling the story, but his wife said she found him one day. He had pulled up a chair in front of the portrait on the wall and was just sitting there looking at it. He'd never paid much attention to it before. He really wasn't into it. Photography didn't mean a whole lot to him. But all that changed. He sat in front of it, she said, for 3 hours, just staring at the photograph of his family. That's something he couldn't have known would be so important, but it sure was to him in those last few days of his life. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't always tell that particular story because every once in a while someone will say, well, you're playing the emotional card. That's not fair. Guys, if you're saying that kind of stuff, in my mind, I'm saying a different word other than stuff. If you're saying that kind of stuff, then you are the problem. Emotions do matter. Now, when it comes to making business decisions and numbers and that kind of stuff, okay, yeah, I get it. Then it's just tinted with your emotion. And it's actually not a smart idea to include too much of your emotion because emotions do make bad business decisions. It's the truth. In fact, emotions make a lot of bad decisions. Let's just put it out there. It's the truth. However, your family is important to you. And someone may say, I have a rule. And I don't know that anybody else has this. Maybe you do, but I have a rule. A family must visit with me ahead of time. There has to be a planning session. I call it a design consultation, but there has to be a planning session beforehand. If dad can't make it, if mom can't make it, no problem, we reschedule. I don't meet with just one of them. And I don't blow it off either, saying, oh, well, no matter, it doesn't matter. I can show up on any given Saturday morning and press the button with the best of them. No. The thing that differentiates me from the next photographer is I know my destination and I plan a path to get there. Yes, I can press the button with the best of them, but that's not what differentiates me from the next photographer. I put myself in the crowd if I don't have a planning session. And photographers say, well, what can I do to stand out from the crowd? Stop doing things that everybody else is doing. Duh. Come on. They have to visit with me ahead of time. We plan this. We know exactly what it is we're going to be doing. That doesn't mean we don't go off plan a little bit because we do, but we plan this. We know what the end result is supposed to be. I know where on the wall it's going to go. And knowing where on the wall it's going to go tells me its size. I know during the planning session, the size of the print going on their wall. I know whether it's going to be a horizontal or vertical. I know if I'm going to need to bring a ladder to put it up because I do all of it, the whole thing. If I was a roofer, I would actually put the shingles on the roof. I wouldn't bring a bag of nails to you, even with a pretty bow. There was another story several years ago, and I'm not going to say who it is because you guys would know who it is. It's a political figure who was running for office. And they wanted a family portrait, and they were going to use it for advertising purposes, which is fine. I think that's great. But dad was running and he was too busy to be at the planning meeting. And so now I didn't know that at first. I was just telling his wife called and I told her that's how we do it. And I told her that's what makes me better than the next photographer is the planning session. I'm just as good as everybody else. The only thing that makes me better, I plan it. I know where it's going to go on your wall, and I'm creating an image for that specific spot. But I have to have all the decision makers in place. They have to be present. And she said, "Oh, it's going to be tough. Are you sure you can't make an exception?" I'm not going to make an exception. And she did play that card. Not even for us. I mean, it's going to be really good for you. You're going to get a lot of exposure because of it. Guys, don't fall for the exposure junk. You're not going to get any exposure. You're going to get, if you do, it's a whole lot less than you expect, and it's worthless, really. But she she was convinced that I was the right person for her. And so she said, well, I'm going to convince him. I'm going to call him and convince him. And she called back and said she was unable to. And can I make an exception? And I said, no, I'm not the right tool for the job if we can't do business my way. I know what makes me best. And I'm not going to give you less than my best. I promise to give you my best. So any amount of not any cutting corners, that's cutting corners. If I cut corners, I'm no longer giving you what I said I'm going to give you. I'm no longer the best at what I do. I'm some watered down version of it. I still care about you just as much as always, but I can't give you my best if we don't go through my steps the way I do business. And she cried over the phone. And I did feel bad about saying no. But I know there's 100,000 other photographers out there that would have taken that job. So, I know that one did because they had an image created, but I'm not going to do it. But not unless I can do business. I know what causes me to be the best. I'm not going to water that down. Does that make me a jerk, Amanda?
Nah. No, you're good. I'm reading some of these comments, Jim. I've got a few different people that are making quite a few good comments. I did want to go back to one of them. Let me see. I'm going to post it up here really quick. So it's Rick Castillo. Hi, Rick. Says, let me just kind of move on to this. It says, I want to see my finished print. I want to make sure my clients avoid CVS. I know you'd spoken a little bit about that, Jim, but I wanted to comment a little bit as well on it. So I cannot tell you how many clients come to us because their photographers gave them a USB or, the digital files, and they went to CVS and they were very unhappy with what was done, not just because it was CVS, but specifically because the digital photographer or the photographers had provided them color corrected digital files, right? So with their own, specific adjustments that they made in Photoshop, Lightroom, whatever, and CVS applies an auto adjustment to their photos. That basically tries to neutralize and add specific type of contrast. It's all calculated, right? Because it's an auto adjustment that CVS, Walgreens, and a lot of these other places do. And then they come to us saying, I don't understand why my photographs came out so bad. To the point that we even get CVS and these other places recommending, no, you need to go to Digital Pro Lab. They're gonna see if they can do something better. They recommend us, and then when we see those images, we realize, oh, these were adjusted. We have to print them without any adjustments on our end, and we've never done an auto adjustment on our ends. When we are doing adjustments, we're doing manual adjustments, and a technician is going in and making tweaks as they're needed. But we have been doing this for so long because this is what we do. We're not a pharmacy. We're not a place that also sells clothes. We specialize in making beautiful prints, and we know how to handle files, right? Digital files, especially from digital photographers. And we know how to handle those so that we can produce the best possible result. So I did want to point that out. digitalprolab.com right here. But, the other thing we've seen is that, the clients don't really know what to do, because the photographer didn't instruct them on how they should present their work. They are kind of relying on their friends or their family and seeing things that they did. And they're having to do that all themselves, which, obviously that's what we're there for. We don't mind assisting them. But we also see that, what did the photographer intend to be the end result with that digital image? What did they envision? How should it have been presented? How much further could that photographer's artistic vision have gone, as far through down to the print? What type of substrates should it have been printed on per the photographer's decision? And Jim touched a little bit on that. You want to maintain your creativity all the way through to the final product. So keep that in mind if you're a photographer that hasn't fully taken from start to finish, to that wall print. Added your own touch, your own element of creativity so that it's maintained from click to the wall, right? Some of the other, there was another one. Did you have anything to say on that?
Totally agree with all that. Of course, I could not listen to you and just come back on and say that, because I always agree with what you say, Amanda. And I've got Gray taking up some space. So you probably notice I just went off center. He's pushing me. He wants some attention. Yeah. I have, guys, if you're watching, I have a husky, 2-year-old husky, who's so much more calm than he used to be. He's not completely there yet, but he's gotten better. But he'll come in and definitely tell me what he wants. He wants a scratching and a little bit of attention. And if I give it, he won't bark. And so sometimes you'll see me kind of looking down and scratching it. I'm paying attention to the dog. He's awesome.
Yeah, it's either the dog or Ray. Somebody's behind me. Okay, so another one, this is kind of a really good segue into the next question from Todd. Let me pop it on there. Let's see. Talk about photo paper options that we offer, suggestions based on type of photo, options, finish, matte, etc. So I'm happy to give some pointers, because I said a little bit earlier, one of the things that scares people off is the education that's needed when you are going to get to the point of offering prints for your clients. There's a lot to learn. What types of papers are out there? A lot of people, consumers, which is all of us, at one time, all of us have gone to a lab, CVS, Walgreens, Digital Pro Lab, wherever, and said, okay, what are your paper options? Or if you remember from the film days, they said, do you want matte or glossy prints? Those are the two standard paper options that most people are familiar with. And then there are so many more than that. So I'm going to go over a couple of them. It's all right in the background. I'm going to go over a couple of them. Let me put this off so it's not on my neck over here. Yeah. So, the first thing I usually explain to our customers are the types of printers that we have, the types of processes that we are able to utilize within the lab. So we have, your traditional silver halide prints. Everybody's like, what is that? If you're familiar with darkroom process, whether you yourself are a photographer that has done darkroom work, that those are your traditional wet prints. They go through chemical process, through the different chemistries to produce an actual print. So what it is light sensitive paper that an image is projected onto that light sensitive paper, and then it runs through each chemistry. And then after, a few minutes, the print comes out and you have your image. If you remember in the darkroom, most of the time it's black and white photos. Nowadays, there are high capacity machines that are able to do that very quickly and affordably, but it's the exact same product or process. So we offer silver halide prints, and some people, love them because they like the luster paper options. They like the metallic paper options or the glossy paper option. One of the things I do tell people is they're some of the most durable prints still, because they go through that wet process. They're okay if they're in a flood. We've had a lot of customers come in, as we've had, over the years, floods here in San Antonio, because they're pretty prevalent here in our area, where customers will come in and say, oh my God, I just lost everything in a flood and I have all these pictures. What do I do? So we'll look at them and we'll say, you know what, those are silver halide prints that you have. Just, lay them out on top of newspaper, and they're going to be okay, because those prints actually went through that wet process. Initially, they're born in the wet process, and they're going to be okay. Which is not true for a lot of other types of print processes, your toner based and things like that. Some of the other types of printing processes that we utilize are aqueous printing. So if anybody's heard the term giclée, it's kind of a funny term. It's a French term that means to squirt. And it really talks about the ink that's being squirt onto the paper. And aqueous printing is what most of our fine art photographers really love, because you're able to print to textured papers, thicker papers than what maybe a silver halide process will be able to provide you. And then you have, solvent printers that we have within the building, which are even more durable inks than the aqueous inks are. So you start to see different types of outdoor signage that can be produced with, your different solvent printers. Then we have, sublimation printing, where you get into your metal or your wood substrates. So that's where it's not being printed directly. Well, technically it is. It's being printed to transfer paper, and then we actually transfer the ink onto a substrate like metal or wood. Those are the two most common that we see. We have some others that we, push the ink over to. And those are incredibly durable as well. We've done outdoor signage with that. And, there's a lot that can be done with a lot of these different processes, and even more processes, even, some things that we don't actually do in-house that are becoming more prevalent on the market that we're looking into. But those are some of the most common. One of the other questions that was asked, let me see, by Todd, is, how do you know what one to choose? There's a lot of answers that I can give you. I'm going to give you one of the ones that's always worked really well for me. If you can look at your image, but when we're printing, it's not just about looking at the image. Don't even look at the image. I want you to come into the lab and say, Amanda, I just want to see the paper. Just a white piece of paper. Show me everything that's available, through the silver halide process. Show me all those papers. Show me everything that's available on the aqueous or the solvent printers. I want to see just the paper, because you'll notice that those papers have their own characteristics, just like your subjects do. We have a lot of clients that, shoot different things, obviously. And we look at, landscape photographers' images and say, okay, well, those particular images there's water in there. Water is reflective. So sometimes we want to take that characteristic of your subject, and then we want to look at a paper or a substrate that has a similar characteristic, because we want to bring that out in the image. And what better way than to take some substrate like a metallic paper that has a high reflectivity that is going to show or kind of emulate the look of water and the reflectivity of water, and you take those characteristics. The other things that you want to look for are the processes themselves, and whether or not a certain print printed from a certain process can really hold a really, really deep black if you really like heavy contrast. Again, look back at the paper and look at the white point of the paper and ask yourself, well, how black do I want my blacks to be? How white do I want my whites to be? And then you have your colors, right? Some printers can't produce beautiful, like vibrant reds that you see on your screen. And a lot of this is education. A lot of this is experience with different processes, with different papers. And, working with a local lab, if you're here in San Antonio, is really a great resource to learn a lot of this stuff, especially like Digital Pro Lab. I know I do in particular do a lot of educational work with our customers who really want to know all of this stuff. Sometimes it gets boring, but other times it really is exciting, and it's not as complicated or confusing as you might think. We talk about process, but I don't teach it in a technical way because it can be really technical. All the stuff that we're learning, softwares and cameras and processes and all this stuff, it is very technical. If you like that stuff, great. I like it, but I also know that I have to explain it even for myself in such a way that makes it digestible. And from there, it's easier and it's fun. And then you really get to know what you specifically as a photographer want to do with your images. And then you start to curate specific options that are stylized for your style of photography. Let's see. This question from David: I started in the dark room long before digital was a thing. I still do it in the dark. That's awesome. By the way, the worst places to print photos for your client is CVS, Walgreens, and Costco. They only print gloss and semi-gloss, and the limit to size of your prints. Yeah, we're not going to talk too badly about them. Metallic paper took my automotive photos to the next level for sure. Oh yeah. Yeah, because those pictures of cars, cars have high reflectivity, so metallic prints have that. So they're really accentuating that characteristic. I'm always intrigued by the acrylic process, ? Yeah, face-mounted acrylic prints are very difficult to do, but they are quite beautiful. They also have same impact if you do metal. Is there a process of package for getting started? Hey, Jim, do you know what that means? To make sure I understand it.
I think it may be or. Is there a process or package for getting started? Although I don't know that for sure.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Is there a process or package for getting started? There kind of is, or kind of isn't. Is there a package that we could give you or that you could ask for so that you could see all of the different options? Yeah, we can definitely give you paper swatch books and things like that so you can actually see what all of the options are. I think it's better, in my opinion. I mean, maybe you're somebody like, give me everything and let me just be overly inundated with everything that you have to offer. But me personally, if you're going to come into Digital Pro Lab, I'm going to sit down with you and I'm going to get to know you. I want to see your images. I want to see and hear a little bit about what you like. And I'm going to actually walk with you through the store and show you different things. And I'm going to watch how you're reacting to things. And then at the end of the conversation, I'm going to pick probably 3 things that I think you should offer based on how you reacted to those things, because of the fact that, to be perfectly honest, you're never going to sell anything you're not excited about. You have to be excited. And when I see you start getting really excited about something, then that's the product you need to be selling. End of discussion.
That's exactly right. Yeah. There's the style of images that you create look best on a certain few types of printing processes. The images that I create almost always were on canvas. Almost always, not always. A lot of times it was traditional printing. But almost always it was canvas. And the people that I worked with, almost always the canvas is what looked best in their home. But it's because I did a good job of describing who I am and what it is that I do. That example I gave earlier in going into Home Depot, people going in for what it is that they want. You could say that as a scenario or an example, that every single tool at Home Depot is representative of a different photographer, a different type of photography. And there's a whole bunch of different hammers. They're very similar. On the surface, they all look the same. But if you know anything about hammers, there's a whole lot of differences between them. And so when someone, if you do a good job of defining who you are and what you do, the type of work that you create, if you do a good job of defining it on your website, on your social media, then you will attract those who want that. In other words, if they're after a specific hammer, They find you because you defined yourself well. But let's say that you are a circular saw, and let's say you've defined yourself poorly, and you say, I am a tool that spins around and cuts things. Well, then they could wind up in the weed eater section. That's not a circular saw, but it is something that turns around, spins around, and cuts things. Guys, you've got to do a good job of describing who you are. Amanda mentioned she's going to take you around and show you the different types, and she's going to be able to watch your reaction. You like some of these things. You have got to be that in your marketing, guys. In order to get the kind of people that you want, you have to describe yourself so that you give yourself that potential. Too many photographers describe themselves as, I'm a good photographer who cares about my clients, who's going to do a good job every time, who is interested in continuing my education, who has the best equipment, who has this, that, and the other. Yeah, okay, that's all good. And you should care about those things. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I'm saying if you don't define yourself well enough for someone to know the difference between you and someone else, you're not done yet when it comes to describing who you are. Now, for some, I know that's too difficult. It's maybe impossible. Maybe you're too early on and you don't really know who it is you are and what you want to do yet. By the way, I help with that. In fact, I do a free session on that, a business assessment consultation. I'll give you one per year. I won't charge you anything for it. All you got to do is ask. That's the cost of entry, asking. And yet some of you are afraid to do that. There's zero reason to be afraid to do that. I can help you narrow down the thing that is best for you, just like Amanda can help narrow down the type of print papers or processes that are going to be best and are going to excite you the most, that are going to show off your style the best. There are tools for that. Don't be wandering in the desert. Get some answers. We can help. Reach out to Amanda. Reach out to me. These are things that we can do. If it's if it is on the printing side, then Amanda, and expand beyond that. Don't limit yourself to printing, because Amanda knows a whole lot more than just the printing side. That's just her specialty. But and mine's on that business side. I can tell you exactly what your prices are supposed to be, exactly, and they have nothing to do with what other people charge. Nothing. It is a curiosity. I'll give you that. I'm curious too what other people charge, but it has 0% to do with what you charge. If you're saying, well, I just moved into the area and I'm trying to get an idea of what the market charges for this and that, I understand the reason why you're asking the question. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with you for asking the question. I'm saying it's not beneficial in helping you reach your goals. So if you've got something, a destination that you're going towards, and the thing that you're doing is not bringing you to that destination that you have, it's wrong, guys. That's why it's so important to define what the end result is on every single thing you do. Define what the end result is. For an individual couple that you're photographing, find out what it is you're doing as an end result. So what does that mean? Finding out who they are. Finding out what's important to them, what they're proud of in their past, what they're looking forward to in their future. Seeing the spot on the wall where it's going to go. When I have those things together, I see in my mind's eye the image on their wall. I see its appropriate size. I see the frame if it requires a frame. I'm seeing all that, but it's only because I've spent time with them. I know what it is that they want. And no, that didn't happen at first. I couldn't do it at first. It didn't even cross my mind that was an important thing to do at first. Never crossed my mind. I don't think anyone ever told me. I think it just happened over time. But when you know what the end result is supposed to be, then it makes it a whole lot easier to plan a path to get there. Good. I want you to take me up on that free business assessment, Chuck. In a moment, maybe I'll put the link here. In fact, why don't I just do that real quick? So I'm gonna grab that link. This is I'm posting it online right here. So this is a free business assessment. All right. All right. So, guys, if you want to take me up on that free business assessment consultation, it's there you see that link there. Just click it, and that takes you to my schedule. And you just pick a time that works for you. And we'll talk about who you are, what your goals are, what you're trying to do with this business. Some have been in business for years. By the way, the difference between someone who's new and someone who is matured in the business has nothing to do with the number of years you've been working. I keep seeing that on people's marketing all the time. I've been doing this for 10 years. I've been doing this for 15. I've been doing this for 20. So what? So what? Who cares? I've seen people who have been doing this 20, 25 years who are still in the newbie category. They just haven't evolved. So the number of years is an irrelevant variable. Let's say you've been doing this for 15 years, but you've done 2 jobs during that 15 years. Is that equivalent to the person who's been doing it full-time for 15? Of course not. So the number of years is not a relevant variable. It's the amount of evolution that you've accumulated during the period of time you've been working. And it never ends. Photography is vast. Photography alone, not even talking about printing and business side and everything else, just learning light. You could spend the rest of your life learning the different tools and how light reacts and reflection, all that stuff. You could spend the rest of your life on that one subject alone and still not know it all. In fact, still be scratching the surface of what there is to learn. Do you agree, Amanda?
Yeah, I'm still trying to scratch the surface over here of what I'm trying to learn too.
There's so much. I mean, when you guys know this, a subject that you know something about, you'll learn a little bit more. And then there's a few tangents that come off of it. And so you go off on one of those tangents and you learn it. But what happens then? More tangents off of that one. So you can imagine every single little piece of information you receive have tangents coming off of it. Every single one. That proves, at least in my mind, that this is never ending. There is no time when you're going to know everything there is to know about photography alone. But that shouldn't bother you. That should excite you. That excites me. I think that's fantastic. It means I will never reach a point where I am done. That means there's always more to look forward to. And that's motivating. It's also overwhelming, but it's motivating. I don't want to talk about that part of it. Liliana asked a question a little while ago, and let me see if I can find that real quick, because I don't know that we addressed it. Is this one it? Tell your clients about. Okay, so if I'm understanding this comment, it's how do you actually talk to your client? What are you giving them? What are you sharing with them? Do you include digitals and prints? And so I'll tell you how I do that part. So I specialize in emotional family portraits as home decor. So that's the slogan. That's what people see. And those who aren't looking for that, don't call, which is great, because that means everyone who contacts me wants a wall portrait, because I've done a good job describing who I am. So those of you who are wondering, how do I get people to even want to do prints? Start telling them that's what you do. If you're a hammer, describe yourself as a hammer. Don't describe yourself as a tool in the tool store. You are a specific tool in that tool store. Be specific with your definition. You may say, well, maybe I want to be a screwdriver, because I could be a hammer if I'm a screwdriver. You can just turn the screwdriver around and hammer a nail into the wall and put that portrait up. Guys, be specific with who you are and what you do. What gets you excited? What makes you happy? Do those things and tell people you do those things. You'll attract people because of it. In San Antonio alone, there's over 100,000 photographers. How are you going to stand out from that crowd if you don't describe yourself very clearly? You're not. You're going to struggle, and you're going to feel like giving up. And if you've struggled and you've felt like giving up, then you know what I'm talking about. So how do you talk to them? You are very specific. This is what I do. Now, do people ask me, do you sell your digital files? Yes, I do get that question. So you may think, well, how do you handle that then? And I tell them, I absolutely sell digital files. They may not be the most economical solution, but I do. And if you're curious, it's $350 for one each. So if they want two, that's $700. Yeah, it's not for the whole set. No way. I put way too much work into it. It's $350 each. And that's a general rule. There are times when it could be more. There's actually times when it could be less. If it's meant for just a social version of it. If I am printing something, I'll actually give them that digital file for social media purposes for free. I won't even charge them for it. So, and I'm not saying that you should do that. I'm saying that I sometimes throw in some stuff. And that would be something I might do, especially if that was an incredible sale. So you may choose to do things like that. But yeah, I think the best way is to tell them up front, this is what I do. This is how I do it. And if that's not what exactly it is that they want, then there's someone else out there that can do that for them. Your goal isn't to get them to say yes every time. Your goal is to find those who will do business your way and be happy about it. That way, when they get to that final price, when I tell them their total comes to $4,100, they pull out their credit card and say, put it on it. Go ahead and charge me for it. I love that. Now, do they comment about price? Of course. Yeah, they'll say that's a lot. But this is worth it. This is exactly what I wanted. It's exactly what I told you I wanted. You gave me exactly what I asked for. So it's worth it. Guys, it feels good to hear that. If you've heard that before, you're worth every penny. How many of you have heard that? You're worth it. How does that make you feel? Do you really want to work your tail off for those people who are going to constantly complain about price? I don't. I want people to appreciate the work that I'm doing. So I seek those who are looking for what I do. That means I have to do a good job describing what I do.
Yeah, Jim, I'd like to, touch on the subject of, quote unquote, my clients won't be able to afford this. When the photographer gets in their own head, because that's what we see as another barrier of making that switch from digital to offering prints, is this impulse for the photographer to say, you know what, I don't think I'm going to do that because my clients can't afford that. Where they're putting their wallets in somebody else's wallet. And it's disheartening when I see it because, they're already putting a barrier right in front of themselves before even offering to their clients. You're putting your wallet literally into your client's pocket and assuming that just because maybe you can't afford that they can't afford it either. And it's one of the biggest barriers that we see. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah. Man, Amanda, that is so the truth. I haven't heard it said that way, but that's a really good way to describe it. You aren't your client. You are a do-it-yourselfer when it comes to photography. Do-it-yourselfers aren't willing to pay big money for stuff. They're just not. So therefore, if you're saying I wouldn't do that, well, of course you wouldn't. You're the do-it-yourselfer. You're not hiring you aren't getting hired by other do-it-yourselfers. So therefore, the fact that you wouldn't do that is a good indication. If you would, that's a bad indicator. Yeah, you don't base your prices on how you feel it should be priced. You base your prices on what does it take to reach your end result goals. If you want to go on vacation, or if you want to have a vacation home somewhere and you are the one who's going to pay for that, well, then you can actually define how much money you need for it. And you can base your prices on something like that. Now, most people don't define their prices based on something as simple as that. It's usually a lot more. But when we define what we want in our lives, we can define exactly the price. By the way, it takes me 20 to 30 minutes to tell you exactly how much you're worth. And I know for those of you who get offended easily, you might not like this, but I can tell you exactly how much you're worth per hour. Although photographers don't usually charge by the hour, just FYI. That's not a normal way for a photographer to charge. On occasion, rare occasion, it could be. But generally speaking, charge by the job, by the type of work that you're doing. But you need to know how much you're worth per hour, so that you can give a price to things, not so that you can tell someone I charge X per hour. That wouldn't be the purpose of it. But I can tell you very precisely how much you are worth per hour.
I'd love
It's a math equation.
I'd love to see in the comments how much people want to be worth an hour. You know, I mean, if you don't mind putting how much you would want to be worth an hour, I'd really love to see what that is. And hopefully that's a good starting point for you as photographers to actually say, wait a minute, what am I worth per hour? What do I want to be worth per hour? And then, you know, that's setting that goal that Jim is talking about, actually being able to say, I've set a goal. What do I need to do to reach it? Because, you know, we've got one right here, minimum $150 an hour is what Liliana wants to make. And Jim, I know you can speak to this, that, you know, a lot of photographers are charging $150. Here's your USB, all of your digital files. How much did that person just make in a session that maybe took an hour to 2 hours? You know, is that truly what that person just made? Jim, did they really make $150? Let's just say the work took an hour.
It's most of us are basing that on if we were an employee making that kind of money. But as a self-employed person, by the way, photographers are independent. We're self-employed. So therefore, assuming you're doing your taxes correctly, you have a large percentage of that you don't even get to keep. And you have your expenses coming out of that. Now, after a while, your expenses probably do come down a little bit, but your expenses at first are pretty significant. And on average, expenses are around a third. And so if you're charging $150, then we've got to take out $50 for your expenses for just stuff that you're going to be purchasing. I heard people say, well, yeah, you got to put gas in the car. That's such a tiny percentage of what you're going to be spending money on. It's true, but man, it's itty bitty. And then guess what, guys? Your taxes, they're about a third too. Now, it's a third of what's left after expenses. But as far as, let's just make this math equation really easy, $150 is a really easy one for me to do. And let's just go a third, a third, a third. So if you say I want to make $150 an hour and you're charging $150 an hour, then you're getting $50 an hour. Because if $50 goes to the government, sorry, $50 goes to expenses, you get $50. And this is approximate. I've seen scenarios where you're actually making less. I've seen scenarios where you're making more. Everybody is different in this category. So let's just make it easy. A third, a third, and a third. If you actually want to bring in 150, then you're going to need to be charging $450 an hour. That actually gets you to 150. By the way, photographers generally, I want to make sure I state this again, photographers do not generally charge by the hour. If you're charging by the hour, probably 90% of the time you're doing it wrong. It depends on what kind of work you're doing. There are times when it is an event, and that may be an appropriate thing to do. It might very well be. But most of the time, photographers simply do not charge by the hour. They charge by the job. And the reason is because there's so much work that goes into it behind the scenes. On average, and this is a total average, it's 10-to-1 ratio. So if you are working your scene for an hour, there's another 9 hours that you're working on other things for a total of 10 hours. And so if you're charging $150 an hour, divided by the 10 hours that you spent on the job, you're now making $15 an hour. Guys, there's not a whole lot. You could go find a job for more than $15 an hour. So why work your tail off if you're going to have that as your own? Photographers are not good about paying themselves. I mean, if you were a boss, if you were the boss, in this instance, you are both boss and employee. If you look at yourself as boss, if you're an employee and you're looking at that boss, you think that boss is horrible. It doesn't pay me well, or she doesn't pay me well, depending on who it is you see in that mirror. They don't pay me very well. They don't take me seriously. Guys, be a good boss to yourself. You have to know how much, though, you actually need in order to make this happen. And I'm seeing a bunch of numbers in here. I'm seeing 150 quite a bit. What is this one? 5 images, $300. Yeah. Yeah, depending on the kind of work you do. If you're doing portraits, this is a weird way to price, although it's very normal. You see this all the time, but this is not a really good way for a portrait photographer to charge. But a lot of them do. So it depends. So for instance, if you're doing headshots, this may be an appropriate way to do that. I don't know what kind of work that you're doing. And I don't even know who it is that commented here. But this implies that you're selling your digital files. When I see someone saying 5 images at 300 or 5 at 500, that implies that you're selling digital files and not prints. And I would say that's ridiculously low. Like I said, I charge $350 per image, per digital file. Oh, and by the way, people do comment on that. They say, oh man, that's a lot. Or some people say, no problem. Because I tend to attract those who maybe half the time say no problem. Chuck, you are worth so much more than $50 an hour. That is, come on, dude. I know you. You're worth 500. I know what happened. You forgot to put a 0 on there. Whoops. That was an accident. I know you intended to put a 0 there. You're worth $500 an hour. Chuck is absolutely worth every penny of that. Let's see, Todd. Oh, that's true. Yeah, Todd. That's one of those points that really gets people bent out of shape because they don't like to, I'm doing it right. I'm working hard. I'm passionate. I can't possibly be part of the problem. Guys, just because you're working hard does not mean you're not part of the problem. If you're pricing too low, you are causing problems because what you're doing is you're causing clients to see those numbers in normal. They don't hire a photographer every day. So therefore, when they see your really ridiculously low price, even though you don't know it, there's times when you don't even know it's a ridiculously low price. I can help you. But you put that price out there thinking, well, that's what I would pay. Guys, you're hurting the industry because that client now believes that's normal. And anything higher than that, they believe is price gouging. They based it on you. And you say, well, I'm new at this. It's not my fault. Guys, it is the new people who are charging these low prices. The new-minded people. There are people who have been in it 20 years that are still new and minded. They're still newbies. They haven't evolved. Again, this is just Jim's opinion. You're welcome to think I'm crazy. Jerome, I look forward to talking to you tomorrow, especially after that comment. Let's see. I do prints. I average $600 a session. By the way, up at the top of the so you're on Facebook. So up at the very top where the original post, at the bottom of the original post, not with all the stuff that's been added to it with replies, there is an option on there to click, and it's a StreamYard permission to be able to show your name and your face. So that's why that's not there. Hopefully, there may be some other reason. So average, my average sale. Should I tell mine or the average in San Antonio? All right. So let's say you're a family portrait photographer. If you're a family portrait photographer, average sale for the full-time family portrait photographer in San Antonio. That's different in different areas. But in San Antonio, the average is on the low end of, and I'm going to give you a range. On the low range, it's $1,800 for a sale. And on the high end, it's about $25. So that's the average range is $1,800 to $2,500 as your average sale. Now that means there's people who are below that, and that means there's people who are above that. My average sale is $3,800. Now I stopped doing. I don't promote my own business anymore. I'm spending too much time helping you guys out, which is what I love to do. And so that ended in 2019, so it was 2 years ago. So my last 3 years of business, I averaged my last 3 years, and my average sale was $3,800 and something dollars, $3,800. So if I was only making 600, how many jobs would I have to do in order to reach my goal of just paying the mortgage? I mean, and all the other stuff that's involved in life. I mean, I can't just pay the mortgage. I want water. I want electricity. I like having food. Hopefully you do too. I like insurance. I like all that stuff. And so, man, I'd have to do a ton of jobs at $600 an hour in order to make things work. So that's a really low average, extremely low average. And I can help you get that up, way up. But thank you for sharing that. Okay, yeah, that's for a boudoir package. It's pretty normal to have a package I would say that is a good creation fee, though. I would say that actually that price doesn't include anything. So it depends. Let's say that you're doing mini sessions and you're doing one right after the other. This is fantastic. This would be fantastic. But most of the people that I work with are low volume photographers. Not that they don't do a mini session here and there, because they absolutely do. They usually do 3, 4, 5 a year. But they actually want more of the full sessions. And so this would be a low price for a full session, but an appropriate one for a mini. So if you're doing minis, good for you. Good, Jiro. That's funny. I don't have all day, but I'll give you as much time as I have. So if I charge an hourly fee, this labor only plus the cost. Yeah. Again, there's got to be a real specific reason, Chuck, to charge an hourly rate. A real specific reason. And almost never is it in the portrait category. Almost never. The events, yeah, that can happen in events. By the way, Amanda, do you agree or disagree with any of that stuff that I've been just spurting out?
No, I absolutely agree with everything that you've been saying thus far. I just wanted to make sure that I know there's a lot of questions about hourly fees. I know one of the reasons that I asked, how much you want to make an hour is not necessarily to encourage hourly charging for photography, because as Jim's been saying, most people don't charge an hourly fee, but it's good, to have a number in your head, because sometimes that's the most tangible number that us as business owners can see as far as what we want to make, is the hourly wage, especially if you've come from a business where you were working for somebody else and you were provided an hourly wage, right? The other way of looking at that is how much do you want to make a year? And, that's where some of the goals that Jim is talking about is, you've got to know what your end goal is. And a lot of those end goals are, how much do you want to make a year? And then he explains, that, some easy math is you really are only ever going to make a third, right, Jim? Am I saying that right? Of what you're actually thinking you're making. You're really only pocketing a third of that. So if you take it at an hourly rate, if you kind of just, dummy it down to that, it makes it a little bit more tangible, a little bit more digestible, or at least you should look at that and say, okay, well, I want to make $100,000 a year, or I want to make 150 per hour. Those are tangible numbers that you can look at to start the conversation for yourself on what you want your goal to be. And, like we said at the beginning, offering prints is another way to increase the amount of money that you make on a per client sale, right? Because, there's a lot of things that you can offer. One, and a lot of what I've seen here in the comments are your session fee, right? You have a session fee. And for a lot of photographers that we work with, the session fee, it doesn't include prints. It's just my time to go out there, those consultations that happen before and after, that's the only thing that covers. And then you charge for prints on top of that.
Yeah. Photographers have value. If you're including things that implies to the client that only your product has value. So if someone were to say, by the way, I know people are going to say, what does that include? And so I preempt that. So I no one ever asked that question because I answer it before they have an opportunity to ask it. What's that?
And what do you say?
Well, so I tell them that I charge a creation fee, and this is for my time. This is for all the things that we're doing ahead of time, the planning session, the session itself, the time that I spend with the images afterwards before showing them to you, and then the time I spend presenting those images to you. And so this is for my time. It's kind of like, I sometimes say it's kind of like a mechanic where they charge parts and labor. So if a mechanic only charged for parts, they'd go out of business. If they charged only for labor, they'd go out of business. A mechanic charges for both parts and labor, and photographers should also. Now, there's different ways of doing that. You don't necessarily have to charge a creation fee. There's lots of different business models. If you don't charge it, then you have to get it somewhere else. But I like to either be very clear with my words or very clear with the path that I take people on, so that they understand either directly or indirectly what the heck's going on here. And so I want them to know I've got value, and that's why I charge a creation fee. And then the prints that are on top of that. So that's the money up front, and it's not a deposit. It is for me. That's money spent. So a deposit means they effectively have a print credit. And some people do half and half or some percentage of it, where some of it is for creation fees, some of it is towards a print credit. I personally don't believe in that, but I do see a business model where that could work. I just don't choose it. So there's a lot of different ways to describe it, but it has to be described. Anytime when you know a question is coming, you should answer it before they get a chance to ask it. For instance, what are the questions? Now, here's a question you can't answer. When they call on the phone, one of the first things they say is how much. So you can't preempt that one, but you can have an intelligent response to it. I say, I am happy to discuss my fees, but do you mind if I find out a little bit about you and what it is you're looking for first? And of course they say yes. Now, I visit with them. I find out who they are and what it is they're after. But at some point, I've got enough information to at least give them a ballpark figure. At that point in time, I chime in and I say, before we go any further, can I give you an indication of how much you can plan on investing? And of course they say yes. And by the way, yes, I say investing. I consider this an investment. For what I do, it goes on their wall. They get to enjoy it every day. It's not like an expensive hamburger that you get to enjoy once and that's it. I want them to know what's going on. By the way, my mind went into if you're having a wedding, if a bride is spending more on the venue than on the photographer, she's misunderstanding what's going on here. Because the venue you get to have for a few hours, and then it's gone for the rest of your life. You don't get to have it. The photographs you get to keep for the rest of your life. They have the most value, in my opinion, of everything at a wedding. And so that's just a little aside. So going back to what I say, before we go any further, can I give you an indication of how much you can plan on investing? And they say yes. Most people in your situation will invest between, and I give them a ballpark. So I may say $1,500 and $4,000, whatever that ballpark is based on what they've told me. I can give them a ballpark number, and I give a real number. I'm not trying to lowball them to get them in the door. I want them to actually get an idea of what they can plan on investing. So most people in your situation will invest between $2,000 and $4,000 and get a larger one for themselves and some smaller ones as gifts. Does that fit within your budget? Notice I preempted what does that include? And can you afford it? So I'm taking those things and I'm putting them into what it is that I say so that they can give me a response that I need in order to go forward. A lot of times they say, yeah, I guess I can make that work. They usually say, as long as it's on that lower end. That's what most of them say, by the way. Most of the time, whatever it is that they tell you they can afford, they're telling you about half. Because almost always, if they tell me they can afford $1,000, almost always their total comes to about $2,000. Almost always. It's almost always double what they say. Don't know why that is. I'm thinking that maybe they're just telling me half of what it is, so they think they can get a good deal. And I tell them up front, I want them to know during that phone call, before they've even decided to give me any money at all for the creation fee. I want them to have a good idea of how much the end result is going to be, because that for me is a very hard time. If I feel, that's why I make sure that everybody's present every step of the way. Because if dad wasn't present, that point in time when I'm talking about prices is tough for me to talk about prices to someone who knows nothing about how much this could possibly be. It's hard. Inside, I'm just ripping apart. My back is sweating. I'm very uncomfortable talking about price unless I've talked about it ahead of time. So during the phone call, not during the planning session. This is a phone call before the planning session. I'll talk about this again during the planning session. But during that first phone call, I want them to have a ballpark amount And I want to make sure they're okay with that before we move anywhere, before we go any further from that. Thanks, Jason. Jason and his wife are fantastic photographers. They have they're relatively new, but you would not know it. They are doing it right. In fact, Jason was and his wife both were speakers at Photo SA at the beginning of the year. So yeah, thanks. Glad you're here. I can keep on going, but I'm also just now looking at the time and I realize I probably shouldn't.
I think we've covered all the high points. I hope we have. I mean, there's definitely making us blush. There's definitely a lot to consider when you're making that jump from digital to prints, but it doesn't have to be scary. Right. It doesn't have to be something that you're going in with your eyes closed. You've got Jim, you've got Digital Pro Lab. There are others out there all throughout San Antonio that sell prints and are wildly successful at it, that are happy to mentor others and help you through the process. And there's no exact same way to go about it. They've developed ways that work for them, and you're going to find the way that's going to work for you, but you have to jump feet first and just try. And you don't have to try that alone. Like Jim said, like I said, we're here to help. And you've got a great network here in San Antonio. San Antonio is just an amazing place to live, especially for our industry. We value our moments, our memories, our history. We've got a very rich appreciation for all of those things here. And it's a great place to be a photographer, to be a photographer and have a great network of people that are there to help you build that business.
That is so right, Amanda. I mean, you hear that I guess an excuse of people saying, well, people can't afford that. That's the example that Amanda gave about you putting your wallet into theirs. That's not fair. Stop being so rude to people. Mm-hmm. It's not up to you to define how much someone else can afford. How rude. Let them be the decision maker. By the way, I have a student who, not a student, I'm just going to say someone I work with, whose average sale for individual portrait sessions, he does couples sometimes too, but usually individual portrait sessions, is over $10,000. And yes, he prints. It's part of his deal. But man, if you guys think that in your area people can't afford it, I'm telling you, the reason why you think that way is flawed. It's untrue. I understand you believe it, but just because you believe it does not make it the truth. There are people in your area, no matter where you're coming from. I know some of you are here in our area, the San Antonio, Texas area, but I also know there's others in other areas. There are people within your environment who value what you do and are happy to pay your price. Define who you are, define what gets you excited, and seek only that. That might be a good note to end on. Reach out to us. Reach out to me, Jim Landers. Reach out to Amanda at Digital Pro Lab, digitalprolab.com. We are awesome resources. We can help. We've helped many and are still going strong, still have that energy behind us. We are the inflatable flailing tube men, but we've got a purpose and we're laser focused towards it. And we can help you create your own laser focus. And like Amanda said, there's a lot of people in San Antonio who can help with that. I also hear people saying that they can't find anybody to help. You're not looking hard enough. Don't blame other people for not helping you. You're not looking hard enough. That's your fault. Now, when you see a problem and you make excuses, you're part of the problem. When you see a problem and you seek a solution and you employ that solution, you're part of making it happen. becoming successful. Which is it going to be? I hope you choose to seek solutions. I have 2 things coming up that I wanted to make sure that I told you about real quick. A few things. I've got a Photo 101 class starting on Wednesday. If you're interested in Photo 101, it's on in the evenings and it's in person. LandersPhotoschool.com to get more information on that. I have a marketing class specifically for low volume portrait photographers beginning next week, called Essential Marketing. It's fantastic. And by the way, I guarantee this class, you will make what you charged for the class during the class, not afterwards, not sometime down the line. No, while the class is still going on, it's 9 weeks. You will make back the money that you spent on me during that class, or I will guarantee it with my time, because I'm dedicated to making sure that it works for you. I'll give you 2 additional private sessions to make sure that it works. Yep, that's how I guarantee it. So that's coming up. The annual San Antonio Photography Tournament is coming up. Next month. You can go to saphotoevents.com, saphotoevents.com to get more information about the annual San Antonio Photography Tournament. Digital Pro Lab and Landers Photography School are both major sponsors in this annual event. This is the 9th annual. That very next day is Elevate Exhibition, elevateexhibition.com. If you want information on that, elevateexhibition.com you have an opportunity to share your work in an open forum where other people can see it. This is a fantastic, by the way, one of the things I think that you should do as far as your marketing is include exhibits. This is a good way to get into the feel of this, how this works, what this is like, what are the things you have to consider. Fantastic way to show off your work, elevateexhibition.com. And so reach out to us. Go to digitalprolab.com. Go into digitalprolab.com. Go to landersphotoschool.com. Reach out to us. We are here to help. Anything else you wanted to say, Amanda, before I close it out?
I mean, as always, thanks everybody for joining us. It's your evening. I'm sure y'all are hungry. I'm hoping you ate while you were watching us. I haven't eaten, so I'm pretty hungry. But yeah, visit us at Digital Pro Lab at 10103 San Pedro if you're here in San Antonio. Come check out everything. Like I said, part of the education process of learning how to sell prints is knowing what the heck prints are. And that's what we specialize in, knowing that if you're editing your image, that you need to be confident in the fact that it's going to come out the way you look at it on your screen. And there's a lot of education there that we provide with monitor calibration. We also provide monitor calibrations for our clients, so that you have that confidence and control of your images, the ones that you're editing, and hope to see in print look the exact same way that you're seeing them on your screen, right? So there's a lot that we can do to help you. So we hope you come. I'd love to meet everybody in person. I know we've been doing a lot of social media stuff, a lot of non-in-person stuff because of everything that's happened. But there at Digital Pro Lab, we are wearing masks. We do encourage you to come in and let us show you everything that we can do. And I hope to see you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Amanda.
You're welcome.
Well, you guys, I appreciate you being here. Thank you for those of you who are participating and posting, sharing. Thanks for saying thank you. We appreciate that. We are so glad that you're spending your Monday evening with us. On most Mondays, the Portrait Profit Show is at noon. We just do it on the second Monday of every single month, just to accommodate those who are unable to make it. So it's just the 6:30 is just a once a month on the second Monday of every single month. It's at 6:30 in the evening. Every other Monday, you'll see that it is on at noon. Mondays at noon. Thank you guys for the nice comments here. For Landers Photography School and Digital Pro Lab, this is Jim Landers bringing you the weekly Portrait Profit Show, giving you evolving content, awareness, and even fun to the business side of photography. We provide helpful information, step-by-step processes, how-to articles, and action steps that will help you with the struggles you deal with now, so that you are constantly realigned to the path that leads to the success you deserve. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye for now.